Okay, well, welcome to Conexxus365. Today, I've got the distinct privilege to talk to an old friend of mine. He's not so old, but we've known each other for quite some time. And it's Frank Beard. Frank Beard is a retail analyst, and for anybody who follows the convenience store industry on Twitter, he is always online and always putting out some very pithy observations about what's going on in the retail space and in society in general. He also runs the Inconvenience podcast, which is really a very unique view into the way that convenience stores operate and retail in general. And so it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Frank to Conexxus365. Frank, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Really glad to be here and chat.
Well, I'm always interested in your insights, and as we said, every time we connect on video call, we just kind of wander off for an hour and a half, and we'll try to keep it concise this time. So, you're here. I'm going to ask you this big question because you're in the moment observer of our industry and retail in general. So, what is top of mind for you these days? What's your sense, and really, what are you talking about the most?
I think there's a lot going on right now, but something I guess I've really been, just really interested in lately is this idea of the fuel and convenience store industry being resilient. And, if you think back to pre-pandemic, which seems like forever ago at this point to me, my internal clock is still broken from last March and April when I lost all sense of time. Every day felt like its own week. But if you think back to before COVID, there was always this talk about the retail apocalypse, which was a wonderful clickbait headline for publications, to drive views. But, it was interesting because I think back to some retailers that disappeared over the years preceding COVID. Good examples, Toys R Us. If you can see my mirror behind me, which looks up to my desk, there's an image that went viral on Twitter when Toys R Us went bankrupt. Someone had put a graphic on a store that said, "I guess everyone is grown up. There's no more Toys R Us kids." Now, this really resonated with me because I was firmly in the prime age group for all of their marketing as a kid. When I went to their stores, I felt like I just died and gone to heaven. I remember the sound of the doors opening, the way the air blew down, the smell of the store, the layout, the point of purchase displays, the countertops, everything. It made that much of an imprint on me as a kid. And so naturally I tracked down the artist and got him to make me another one of these because I wanted that. But when we think back to these companies and why they weren't resilient, all you had to do was just walk in the store. That Toys R Us by me, my wife and I have an obsession with bankrupt retailers. We always go explore their stores and take photos. This Toys R Us, I kid you not, had the same countertops they had in 1996 when I put Nintendo 64 games on it. And the thing is, they just never even bothered to update these. Now, I know their company's story should include private equity and what a disaster that all was for them. But let's be honest, these retailers that were failing, it's not like they were pouring tons of effort and innovation into their stores and they just didn't get lucky. They weren't even trying. And that's kind of the problem. Toys R Us at the end of the day was a dirty, deteriorating box full of undifferentiated products that had no compelling reason to visit. Why would you go there over Walmart or Target? And why would you ever go there over Amazon? There's just no reason to, right? And there wasn't, and people didn't go. The same could be said for Sears, for Kmart. The Kmart by me had the same dressing room signs that were back. They were created in the early 1990s. This wasn't because they liked the vaporwave aesthetic and thought it'd be a cool marketing initiative. This is because they never updated since, that was a thing. It was terrible. Anyway, it's a long way of saying these retailers had stopped providing a compelling reason to visit their stores. The customer experience was bad. The product offer was bad. And, it was around that time, we were always saying, well, fuel and convenience is resilient, not getting hit by the retail apocalypse. And that's true. But I think we really need to be honest about why that is exactly. My opinion, and I could be wrong, is that this industry is largely resilient because it sells a highly regulated commodity that you can't function without. Yeah. If I don't have enough money to put gas in my car, I pretty much can't be a functioning member of society. Everyone has to come to this industry to get by or to pay the services of someone who does. So the question, though, is what happens if that advantage starts to erode and that moat disappears around the business? I'd done some writing last year with a friend of mine, Brandon Lawrence, who runs a data consultancy, Fuel Insight. And we had spent all last summer talking about what's going on, what's a big takeaway from this. And we settled on this narrative of COVID being a dress rehearsal. It simulated the conditions of a long-term erosion in fuel demand and allowed retailers to see what that would mean for their business. The challenge is a lot of retailers, I don't think, are looking at it that way because they had the benefit of stock-up behavior driven by the pandemic and high fuel margins driven by what happened with oil last year. Mm-hmm. To be clear, though, those aren't advantages of their business model. That's just luck. That's just pure luck. They got really lucky, and thank God they did, because it was a good thing to have happen. But I think what they should be asking is, okay, if that went away and the cars keep getting more fuel efficient, EV penetration grows, and you see a 20, 30%, whatever it is for your business drop in fuel volume, are you prepared to thrive in that environment, or are you going to be treading water? You look at a company like Domino's. Domino's was prepared for the pandemic because they spent an entire decade building off-premise infrastructure to sell pizza. The Domino's experience is done on a phone or a web browser. You don't even go to the store. Not saying that's always going to be the same for convenience retail, but it's just an example of someone who is positioned well for this. So, I'd also earlier this year, and Gray was fortunate to contribute a quote to this. I collaborated on a report with some counterparts overseas, and Scott Annan from Independent Retailer Owners Forum, Dev Dillon, a food service consultant, Sabine Benoit, who's a professor at the University of Surrey, and then Daryl Burchill, who was BP's head of global retail. And we put out a report looking at what's a 10-year outlook for the industry? What are the challenges coming down the pipeline? And we settled on the idea that there's a key strategic question facing the industry, which needs answers, not necessarily planning. And it's this: why is a customer of 2030 going to drive to your store or interact with it online? And that just kind of gets to this idea of code being a dress rehearsal. There's a lot of retailers out there that get by with the Kmart customer experience, that get by with the Toys R Us customer experience. Cokes and smokes, stores that are kind of dirty, maybe a little sketchy. And that model works extremely well because there's a lot of demand for fuel right now. But if that starts to erode, how are you going to convince someone to go to that store? I don't know, and that's really the whole topic. So that's a long answer, but that's basically what's been on my mind right now, because I think it's really timely and really important.
Well, and I think we've got a couple of notes that are being filled in right now, right? So we've mentioned that when you look at the Fuels Institute, they're saying, look, just mileage improvements in cars. If we buy new cars, it's probably going to take 15 to 20% of our demand away, even though vehicle miles traveled is going to go up. And so, in other words, you look at how mileage has improved, you can see where that's happening. It isn't necessarily going to be done by isn't necessarily going to be done by EVs. It's going to be done by this mileage stuff. And so we're seeing more and more of the months getting filled in. So we think that vehicle mileage is going to take anywhere from 15 to 20% of our volume away. And that has nothing to do with EVs, right? So you and I were on Twitter over the weekend. Lonnie had posted a tweet saying, so, our EVs in our future. And I'm like, well, forget about that. That's handicapping. It's, hey, our mileage is going to be one of our biggest detractors on that. The other thing too is what happens by 2030 if a neuro, device shows up and gives me whatever's in Walmart within an hour. Mm-hmm. And so there's the assault. Yes, we're the king of the 1 hour consumption window, but people, GoPuff and those guys are looking to take that out. So, give me some other thinking on our stores. Yeah, they can be tired. Our stores can have these issues like Toys R Us. What about offer? What about changing with the way society is thinking in those terms as far as what they need?
Yeah, convenience retail has some challenges coming down the pipeline, but at the same time, I think it's got a tremendous amount of advantages. I'll give you an example just based around food service. This is a few weeks ago, maybe it was a month ago, but woke up on a Saturday and just wanted a McDonald's breakfast sandwich more than anything. It just sounded like exactly what I need in my life right now. So I pull in that drive-through at 10:25. Predictably, there's a bottleneck. I get to this screen at 10:30, maybe plus 20 seconds. And hey, can I get a bacon, egg, and cheese McMuffin? No, we're doing lunch right now. All right. Well, I mean, not going to be a Karen or anything, but I was here on time. It's okay if it was under a heat lamp. I really don't care. It could be 30 minutes old. I'm still fine. I love trashy food, right?
Right.
And just going to be throwing it away. Well, they're not going to sell it. They're not going to sell it to you. And I'm pretty sure their system might not even allow you to do it if I had to guess. But the thing is, it's just the older I get, the more I look at things like this and I'm like, it doesn't matter how much money I spend to this company over the years. It doesn't matter how loyal you are to them. They don't care. They don't prioritize the customer experience. They don't prioritize customer service. That's not even on their radar. Their job is to get you in and out as quick as humanly possible and make some big data decisions. And when you fall in those little areas that do require a little bit of customer service, they just don't even pay attention to it. And it's kind of frustrating, so what I did instead, I drove down the street to a Come and Go because I knew if Come and Go did not have a breakfast sandwich, they would just make one for me because they'll do that at 6 p.m. at night if you want them to. Right. And that's the point. I really think the quick service restaurant industry has left a competitive gap a mile wide. I think a lot of retailers look at these operations and feel that they're sophisticated and that they've been in the food service game longer. But from a consumer's perspective, they're setting such a low standard. Chick-fil-A gets a gold star for doing the bare minimum. Mm-hmm. Seriously, Chick-fil-A does a good job, right? But Chick-fil-A does the bare minimum. They do what you would expect somebody to do. The fact is their competitors don't do any of that. So they stand out as a result. Now,
they don't need the third window, for the crap they forgot to put in the bag.
Oh yeah, that's another issue. Well, I mean, we went through a Burger King drive-through the other night because I wanted to try their Impossible Whopper to see if it was any good. I was happy to see someone was doing a a meat alternative, and I mean the sandwich was good, but the poor individual working there just sounded dead inside. And that's the thing; these aren't companies that are recognized as being good employers either. Right. So if you look at the convenience store industry, you see a few things happening. One is we have a lot of retailers that are getting recognized for being good employers and are seen as desirable jobs. I think the acceptance rate for a job at a QT is extremely low. It's a very competitive job. Companies like Buc-ee's pay well, Sheetz, Wawa. I mean, we can name off dozens of retailers that do a really good job here. But at the same time, I just think that convenience stores are able to deliver something that the quick service restaurants aren't. Flexible day parts, larger menus, more customization, a touchscreen ordering experience, possibly a mobile ordering experience that's based around customization as well. It's kind of a service that may not be as high end as some of the fast casuals that are real niche, but it's a lot better than what you're getting from the QSRs, a lot more convenient, a lot more quicker. It's just, I think there's something there. And I think there's some retailers that are doing a good job with this right now. I mean, anyone who's walked into a Sheetz at 2 a.m. to get food knows exactly what I'm talking about. No one's out there at that time of day serving you like that.
Yeah, I've got a daughter who's actually now working at Texas Born, and I've got a son who is actually a cook at Texas Born. And the experience that they've had, they all worked at Pizza Hut. So they've all worked the fast food thing, and they come back and they're like, this is like night and day. Yeah. We're treated with respect. Yes, it's a high-paced environment, but people are having fun. And by the way, we're making food in the theater, environment. They're proud of them making food in front of the customer because the customer looks at it and says, okay, that looks like a quality job. Mm-hmm. Like High Country Market where you and I, went there. They're making it all in there, and you get to see it, being done. So it is a great opportunity. Whereas the QSRs tend to be highly formulaic. The old joke about Taco Bell. They figured out 50 ways to use the same 4 ingredients, right?
It's true. It's very true.
So they're good at that. But, we do have a better advantage when it comes to that. And then the other thing is, how do we figure out how to deliver the rest of the store, and how do we do it faster? I mean, we've got folks who are experimenting with drive-throughs. I think drive-throughs are going to be a big component to the convenience store space, because when I've talked to some of the operators, at COVID, everybody was thinking curbside was going to be huge. Nobody was using curbside. No. And I'm really seeing that too with curbside. And look, here's the thing at the end of the day, curbside is great if you're doing made to order pizzas or something that you're going to drive, pick up and take home. Like if you're doing catering, any of the same use cases that you would see from an actual restaurant where you're picking up the food and going home. It's fine for that, but no one is going to curbside a Bang energy drink. There is no reason to do that. And part of the convenience store customer experience
at least for me, and I think a lot of other people, is walking in the store, not entirely knowing what it is you're going to get when you step foot inside. Maybe I'm going to look at a couple different energy drinks. Maybe I just want to see if there's something new and exciting, or there's an LTO going on. Some stores do change inventory frequently. You mentioned Lonnie. Lonnie's store has new stuff every time I go there. I have to go in that store because I want to see what's new, and I usually end up getting whatever's new. But if you pull open a mobile app and you start adding a couple Red Bulls, a snack bar, whatever it is you're getting, it's probably going to be quicker just to go in and get it yourself and get back out in your car. By the time you do that, select a form of payment, and then definitely by the time you wait for someone to bring it to you, it's going to be a longer experience. I don't think curbside makes almost any sense for convenience stores. Delivery, on the other hand, and drive-throughs definitely make sense. Drive-throughs are interesting. I remember I ran a survey, a really large survey, I want to say about 3 years ago when I was on the team at Gas Buddy. And I was trying to drill down and get a sense of, for the people who use drive-throughs, how essential is the drive-through experience to their decision? Basically, who's not going to go somewhere that doesn't have a drive-through? And across all age groups, it was right around 20% of survey respondents that said they will not go somewhere that does not have a drive-through. And I found that interesting because when you get into the reasons why they're saying that, 35 to 44-year-olds, it was a lot of people basically saying, I have kids in the car. Yeah. It may take longer to go through the drive-through in many cases, but it's, to get kids out of the car, that's really convenient. It's like someone that I talked to who operates a lot of car washes, and he was talking about over the years, as smartphones came out, he noticed the queues increased on the car washes. And, he said, well, yeah, because now you can look at a smartphone and you have time enrichment in your vehicle. So I think the drive-throughs are the same thing, because I've just done my own weird test. And the last time I tested drive-throughs versus a convenience store, it was three times slower to go to the drive-through. And the spread was significantly wider on the times, because it could be 3.5 minutes at a Dunkin', or it could be 15 minutes at a McDonald's or Starbucks.
Right.
It's anyone's guess. So
yeah, we've all shown up to like a McDonald's that has their inside open after COVID, and you look at this horrendous line and nobody going in the store. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to park my car and actually walk in. And sure, you beat these guys, because everybody's just been preconditioned now. It's, you go to McDonald's as a drive-through, and we're seeing more and more of these QSRs shutting down their in-store dining, just saying that's not a big part of our business anymore.
Yeah, there's an article that came out, I want to say midway through last year, and it was talking about when some of the dining rooms are starting to reopen, some franchisees at Wendy's were pushing back, and they're like, we're at almost pre-COVID sales and our dining rooms closed and our operating expenses are lower. Like, why would we want to open at this point? And I can't say I blame them. And especially when you look at what's going on with food right now. I know you're seeing this in your area of the market because it's way more developed than mine, but even here in Des Moines, if I open Uber Eats tonight, it's going to be like Ghost Kitchen, local restaurant, Ghost Kitchen. That's the experience right now. They're not always clearly identified, but if you see some weird thing like Cosmic Galactic Pizza and you Google it and see it's in Philadelphia, New York, and Austin, Texas, well, it's probably a Ghost Kitchen. So then it's fun to see where it's operating out of, and it'll be some local Italian restaurant that's doing it. I talked to a C-store operator the other day who runs some AM/PMs that I interviewed for our podcast. He's running Ghost Kitchens out of his AM/PM stores, and kind of partially got the idea because he saw a brand and it didn't look like it was local, and he did some investigation and found out it was coming out of a Denny's. Yeah. Go figure.
Yeah, Chuck E. Cheese, that's their new.
Oh, Pasquale's Pizza.
You put an Italian name on there, and there you're off to the races, right?
Yeah. So good enough for them.
we're touching on the digital side. So where do you see the changes on digital engagement with consumers? And I think a lot of people are wrestling with this, right? Which is, you and I've got our Twitter buddies. They do a fantastic job, right? And then we've got big companies that just do a terrible job where there's no excitement. So what makes it work? What doesn't make it work? Who do you think are the winners on capturing social media and reaching out to the consumer at large?
Ooh, there's a lot to unpack on that one. One thing I'll start with here is something that always comes to mind. There is, I think a lot of small operators, sometimes feel like we don't have the resources of the big guys. We can't compete as effectively effectively here, that is so not true. One thing I would say, Google Maps is a good example. You'll have companies that'll spend all this money to share memes on Twitter and hire a team to do it, and yet they'll ignore the thousands of customers that are interacting with them right now on Google Maps and the quality signal, good or bad, that that's sending to everyone else that looks up their listings. One of the best GMB profiles I've ever seen comes from a small convenience store / restaurant called Mule Kick in Arkansas. Actually, Brandon Lawrence, who I mentioned before, is the one who tipped me off about this, because he and his wife love to go there whenever they drive through the area. Just look this up, guys. You'll have the same takeaway I did, which is, this looks fun and I want to go here. That is the only reaction you get when you click on this profile. And that's so effective. It's just one store, although I think they're building one in El Dorado, Arkansas now, so soon to be two. But the thing is, that's just a small team. Anyone can do this. Lou Perini's is a good example. Small team, they make it work. Often for the small operators, you got to have a good sense of what your brand is, though. And often the brand is so intertwined with the owner's personality. Like a Fave Trip. Fave Trip's one of the best in the business as far as social media goes. But the thing is, there's a large brand that I won't name that has some of the absolute worst Google Maps reviews. I love looking at them because it's laughable how bad these are. It's like, hey, the store is closed at midnight and I'm trying to get in and the employee's flipping me off. And this 24-hour store, what's going on? They copy and paste the same response to every negative review. And sometimes it's done in a way where what they're complaining about, if you were to post that reply, it's very clear you didn't even read it. Hey, we're going to pass this on to the local management team. Well, sometimes the local management team's the problem. Let's be real here. But when you do that, you'd be better off saying nothing. Like, it just tells customers that you don't care about their very legitimate complaints. I think a big thing for social media right now in general is just authenticity. People are used to brands that aren't authentic, that don't care. And even if you do the bare minimum and just show that you're listening to what they're saying and you're taking it seriously, like, that goes a long way. It's like when you complain about UPS on Twitter and you get one of those seemingly automated looking UPS replies with someone's name attached to it. And it's like, hey, please send us we'd love to help. Can you tell us about the problem? It's like, dude, I just told you what the problem is. I posted 4 times about this and you replied to it. Like, did you not read it? We're so used to that bar being set so low. So when someone really does try and someone cares, it works. That's a topic I could get into a lot, but one thing I do want to say on the topic of digital engagement, getting into the mobile app experience for a lot of C-stores, I think this is something the industry struggles with, because this is by and large an industry that you stop at while you're en route to somewhere else. A mobile app experience is not as native to a convenience store as it maybe is to a pizza delivery company. But I think something I've been thinking about a lot lately is, as I look back, I think the past 5 years, we saw this massive rollout of retailer apps. But my personal observation over this past year is, I think very few of these apps were in any way useful to a customer that didn't want to come in a store last year. And I found that really interesting. There's a couple in particular I'm thinking of that I won't pick on publicly here. But when I think of their apps, I honestly have to wonder why anybody would download those on their phone. What do they do? What's it do for me? All right, one's got a store locator, but I've got Google Maps in my pocket, so I'm good on that front. It has mobile payment for fuel, but I've also got Google Pay. I've also got a card that has, that is NFC enabled. So why would I put that card's information in there to do that kind of a payment when I could just do it with the card? There's all these reasons why everything it has, there's a better alternative. And so what are you left with? And again, all those things are fine, but what are you left with other than that? I don't know. All it does, as far as I'm concerned, though, is it blows my phone up with a bunch of push notification spam for CPG funded discounts. And they say it's personalized, but okay, so I'm getting a push notification for Diet Coke instead of regular Pepsi. Guess what? I still don't want that. So that's a challenge. I think retailers need to think really hard, though, about what functionality do you need to build into your apps and how can you make that app part of your actual customer experience? Now, may not be an easy answer, but I think it's got to be more than loyalty marketing. I really do.
I want to go back to the apps, because I think you've hit on something that's really important, right? I mean, we've seen data on apps where consumers, they'll have 2, maybe 3 retailer apps on their phone. And one of them is Amazon. The other one's probably going to be Starbucks, maybe Chick-fil-A. But it's these ubiquitous apps that are out there. And I agree with you. I mean, when it comes to our mobile environment, here's a test I always give to people. Go stand in front of a store. Go stand in front of an ATM at a store and say, hey, Google, where's the nearest ATM? And it's not going to send you to the store. It's going to send you to a bank down the street. And if you say, hey, Google, where is the nearest coffee? It's going to send you to a Dunkin' down the street or a Starbucks down the street, right? And we put all this money into our mobile apps, but I can't find you. So what you end up having is people who are using your mobile apps are your most loyal customers. That's it. But you're not getting any new customers. And I think we've also, Next has also kind of dimensioned that, hey, every day, we're seeing about $32 billion worth of fast food business drive by our stores on the way to McDonald's, is, back to our earlier point. So, we've got to get a lot better. And I think the people who are getting hurt the most right now are the people who are the smaller guys. When I talked to Anthony Perini, he paid a local college to write his mobile app. I mean, that's the way he got into the business, right? And it does what he needed to do. But so this whole online thing, I think, is really a great opportunity, is a great challenge. If you can be relevant, funny, and not hard selling on social media, all right, and then you can get found on Google, then it's at least I can get folks to my store. And I think those are table stakes going forward. We call it dashboard commerce, right? I get in my car, I'm on my way somewhere, and every car now has got voice recognition, and it's allowing these very complex searches to be done. Hey, I got a date, I need my car charged up, I need a 6-pack of beer, and I need a car wash. Those are 3 things that Google will be able to resolve and recommend somebody on your way to where you're going to get this done. How do we participate in that? That's a big question.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, especially on the digital listing side. I did a bunch of work on that over the past few years. When I was on the team at GasBuddy, we worked a lot with Uberall, which is one of the big aggregators, to put out a solution where we were not just cleaning up the listings on the GasBuddy platform, but also pushing that out through Uberall to Google My Business and a number of other platforms. And I've just kind of stayed involved on that issue out of a personal passion. But I got to be honest, and I'll just throw this out there. I think one of the elephants in the room is there needs to be a conversation about the role of the oil companies in digital listings. One of the single biggest problems is the fact that if I own a single store right now and I'm deciding whose fuel I want to sell, whatever brand I bring in, I can't control the pin on that listing. That oil company is going to come in and claim it as a larger, batch of locations and just claim and manage that. The problem is they don't really do a very good job. Let's be really clear about this. Mentioned High Country Market and Gastropub. I checked it again last week. There's still a disconnected phone number on the Exxon listing. It used to have the wrong business name. Been over there. They're still in business. Yeah. Well, yeah, there was like an outdated business name. It didn't even say Exxon for a while. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. I've never heard of it. But the thing is, the typical oil company listing is going to have the name of the fuel brand, which is fine. And then it's going to have the most basic information, nothing too crazy. But a lot of that information gets outdated. And the biggest issue is sometimes, these retailers that are selling their fuel are really interesting stores with quirky business models, very relevant offers, things that flourish in a community, but if they were moved 50 miles away, might not even work. And that kind of nuance should be able to come out on those listings, but they don't give a lot of support for putting photos on there, for spicing it up in any way. And that's incredibly frustrating to owners when you talk to them. I know an owner right now who just got rid of one of his fuel brands and was struggling to find anyone at the company to get control of the listing back from. I had to contact someone who used to run the global account and ask who his replacement was and get that email and then pass it back along to him so he could try to wrestle control of that away. And that's That's not acceptable in 2021. I know a station owner in Australia whose son went in, and they're real big on like barista driven coffee. And it's a really cool chain. Took all these amazing photos of the stores, put them all up on the fuel listing. And then the fuel brand came in and overrode everything and put his personal cell phone number as the company phone number. I mean, this is embarrassing, actually. That's not acceptable for 2021, and it wasn't acceptable even 3, 4, 5 years ago. So I agree it's a huge issue, but I think there needs to be a conversation about how folks can either work better with the oil companies or how the oil companies can somehow cede control of these listings. Because quite honestly, most of these sites they don't even own in the first place.
Right.
That's like saying, the brand of ATM is going to control the ATM listings, or Frito-Lay is going to control your store listings because you sell their chips. Like, it's kind of weird. At least it is to me. I could be wrong, but you're right, because today's consumer, Google Maps, it's not just a navigation app, and this is what a lot of people miss about it. It is just an entire pocket resource to everything and anything you need. It's sometimes I think a lot of folks in the C-store industry think, why should I put all this attention into listings when you're telling me someone's going to navigate to the store at the end of their street? No, that's not what I'm telling you. What they're going to do is they're going to open that to check your hours, to get a phone number, to leave a review, both good or bad, for any number of reasons. And what you saw since COVID hit is a lot of additional functionality has actually been added into it. One of my favorite stores is REI. I think they're one of the best retailers out there. The way I found out about my local REI finally opening up to in-store customers was because they updated their status on Google Maps and said you could come in the store. I was like, oh, that's cool. All right, I'll be there like in 5 minutes. There's so much that can be done with this. And what it is, it's providing the information that companies used to bury on location finders on their websites. Instead of, going through that mess, like if you've ever tried to find a post office, you know how frustrating it is on the USPS website. You just use Google Maps and get exactly what you need. In fact, Uber all saw last year that when COVID had hit, globally, they saw a big drop in requests for directions, but they saw a huge uptick in people getting requests for phone numbers and hours of operation, and all that other stuff they needed. So I agree. It's an imperative to get that right.
And it's really hard for individual site operators to manage that, but they're watching this business just go by them. And to our original point, which is, okay, so as your fuel volume's tailing off, how are you going to replace that profitability that's also being tailed off? Yes, prices of fuel will probably go up as it becomes more of a unique thing to buy. We saw that in COVID, but if you've got 120,000 stores still trying to compete and sell fuel, 20% isn't going to put people out of business. It's going to make people compete higher. So you've got to get better. You've got to have some other offers that are there. EVs. So
that's an interesting topic, man. We can go so many directions on that. First thing I'll say is, I bought a car last December, which I guess was good timing because apparently right now is not the time to buy a car. So I'm really glad I drove down and got that when I did. But I found myself thinking, man, is that the last gas-powered car I'm going to be buying? I have no idea. I mean, I think that Cybertruck looks cool. I'd be lying if I said it doesn't. I'm a science fiction reader, so really appeals to a lot of sensibilities, I guess. Looks like it drove out a Blade Runner. But the thing about EVs that I just find interesting is it really seems to me that it is an EV charger is an amenity. It's not a core value proposition. I think there's a line of thinking out there that you see from folks as they start to look at this issue for the first time and they think, oh, well, why don't they just replace fuel pumps with electric chargers? And I get that sentiment, but here's the thing. The moat around the business disappears with electric charging because anyone can get in that game. I was in a conversation with someone the other day and they said, oh, this would be great. Convenience stores can get into nail salons and this and that. And I was like, look, I'm not going to speak for any women, but I'm just going to take a wild guess here and say that my wife might not trust, Exxon's ability to do nails. Nothing against Exxon. That's just, they're good at some things. Nails isn't one of them.
Right.
So it's, and moreover, why couldn't the nail salon just put a charger in? It's like a barbershop I used to go to. They're so busy that some guys would wait there for 3 hours.
Right.
Why couldn't they plug the car in? They own the site. The thing is, whatever the demand for public charging does look like, which I think is going to be way lower than what a lot of people are expecting, is retailers are going to have competition from a wide range of businesses where dwell time already exists. And if you look at the reports coming from Norway, it pretty much just says normal charging is a behavior that happens, or an activity that happens when the car is parked for a long duration of time. Mm-hmm. So I just don't think you need 150,000 convenience stores with public chargers. I don't think the demand's going to be there for that. And a lot of people will point to multi-unit dwellings, but I've seen reports too coming out of Norway that suggest as much as 60+% of BEV owners in apartments say they're charging at home weekly or more frequently, which would suggest that they have chargers at a lot of these multi-unit dwellings. A lot of new units are being built with them. I just saw an article the other day. A town is trying to, I think, legislate it so that, apartments have to put them in, at least for 15 or 20%, I think was a number of their. Point is there's just going to be so many opportunities to charge, and it may be a very fine amenity for certain retailers. I think a place like Buc-ee's or Love's Travel Stops or Pilot Flying J would be a wonderful place to have chargers. They got a lot of room. They have good products. Be a great place to stop if you're on a long drive. But for your average neighborhood person, these cars are coming out with over 300 miles of range on them right now, and that's already multiples of the daily miles driven. Right. If you, God forbid, you have access to a home charger, you're starting every day with a full battery. I don't drive 300 miles in a day. I don't know anyone who does.
Right. So it's really out of home on a big trip type of thing, right now. And we started at Max has started looking into the economics of it, of course, and the CapEx is huge. The inability to be able to resell power. It's going to be a chicken and egg thing for a while, but right now, obviously, everything's a nice rosy picture. EVs are coming. We need to have chargers out there. We even have Washington, D.C. saying we're going to put 500,000 of them out there. Where? How? Yeah. How are you going to pay for it? Free energy for everybody. And by the way, Elon Musk and Toyota say, well, our grid couldn't support it anyway. So we got a lot of power issues to go in that regard. And then we look at the lift. So the dwell time is great, and you can say, well, this would be great. Maybe I need to put in sit down eating, and maybe I need to, have a better food offer. So more like the Irish motorway type of thing, where you're going to come in, you're going to have a cup of coffee, you're going to sit there for 20, 25 minutes and charge up. I don't think a lot of our stores are prepared for that.
No, and this is the thing. I mean, all of those things that folks say you should be doing to attract an EV customer are good things to do in the first place. Those aren't things you should be doing because you want to attract an EV customer. They're things you should be doing because that pulls people off the road and brings them to your store. And you brought up, the Ireland retailers. I wrote this report with Scott Annan from London and a few other folks where we looked at basically what U.S. retailers can learn from their Northern Ireland counterparts. And some of the data that his group has, there's retailers and they're doing 50 to 70% of inside sales on fresh food for today and less than 10% on tobacco. I mean, these are first and foremost places just to go eat. You look at retailers like Morn Centra. I mean, pull that up on Google Maps. I wish I had that in my neighborhood. I'd be there all the time. Right. It's an incredible retailer with wonderful food. And that's the thing. I think they're the real global outlier in food service, kind of like, Norway's a global outlier in EVs and, China for practically everything retail tech. It's just, I think the more that US retailers are able to move in that direction of not just fresh food service, but food service with a strong brand identity wrapped around it, I think the better place they're going to be in. You look at a company like Wawa, like Casey's, Sheetz. If that fuel canopy disappeared, there's still a business model there through food. Right. Not saying it's going to, but I'm saying the point is those are really strong stores. The folks that are scratching at the surface level with, prepackaged, heat up, sausage, egg, and cheese croissants that have no brand identity and things like that. That's a dime a dozen, and you can get that anywhere. What is uniquely yours, and what can people not get anywhere else? You mentioned Texas Born. When they were quick, last time I was down there, those breakfast tacos were to die for. Those are seriously, I've thought about those a lot. Those are some of the best I've had. That makes an impression on a person. And I knew, how I knew it was good? Because after I bought the breakfast tacos, I was at the register and the cashier was trying to convince me to come back for lunch because he was telling me how good the food is during lunch.
You think this is good? You got to try the lunch. Yes.
That's when someone's hit a home run,
Well, listen, we're at time. You and I can, and we plan, and by the way, we will. We need to get back together again on a periodic basis. But I wanted to thank you for coming over and talking to our audience. And as always, Frank, it's been fun talking to you about what's going on in the industry and in real time, which is great. So with that, we're going to move over to Q&A and see if we can answer any questions that people have.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me on. This was fun.
My pleasure. So, I wanted to go back to a couple of things, and I had a couple of extra questions as we go along. When we were talking about Google search, and a lot of people think it's just Google, but the fact of the matter is that there's probably 170 different search engines out there. Everybody's vying to get that on-the-go search. So Facebook is out there trying to buy with Waze, which is buying with Google, which is buying with Apple, and those are just some of the big ones. Seems to me that retailers of all sizes ignore the reviews on these sites at their peril. When you were saying, somebody puts in the complaint and they even get feedback. I've got to believe that there's lots of small operators that get complaints and there's just no feedback. It's just there, and their Yelp scores are down around 1, and there's no response. There's no, so how would a small guy or a small operator manage that, let alone a good-sized operator?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just starts by even treating it as a priority. I think a lot of companies just completely do ignore it. It's not just small operators. There's major chains that ignore it. There's been some chains that I've encountered where I can find a listing for their fuel canopies, but there's not even a listing for the convenience store. I just went to one in St. Louis where that was the case. It was only listed as a Phillips 66 and not the name of the actual retailer. I just think a lot of folks don't treat it as a priority. And I really think it does come from this mistaken belief that their customers aren't going to navigate to their stores. And that might be the case. But as I mentioned, it's not all about navigation. It's these are more comprehensive tools at this point. And there are a lot of people who will navigate anyway. They're passing through or whatever. But I think it really just comes from, if someone's complaining about something, how would you resolve that in person? How would you fix that? It's not rocket science. Like, this is literally just about listening to complaints and answering them, and understanding that you're doing so in a very public arena where your answer is going to be a reflection on the quality of your business and how you conduct your business. As funny as it is, sometimes when you see a single site operator or a restaurant who is like, telling the customer, yeah, you're complaining, but you were the rudest customer I've ever had. Don't come back here again. As funny as it is to see those things, that really does kind of, look a little sketchy and maybe dissuade you from visiting that business. The reason I brought up Mule Kick is when you look at the replies to the reviews, I mean, they're getting on there to the positive ones and saying, yeah, thanks for coming in. We love you. You're the best. And it's like you can just feel the excitement coming from them.
Right.
It's infectious. And
that's see almost that, a full-time job. Right?
It doesn't have to be. It is for larger brands. It can be, I guess, for larger brands. The thing is, like, the volume of reviews coming in on those, especially for smaller operators, it's not so high that you have to be on it day in, day out. I mean, I helped an operator with an audit of theirs at one point, and they had some sites that honestly didn't have a lot of reviews. I was at the point where I was telling them you should maybe encourage people, your favorite customers, to try to leave some reviews and boost those rankings up, or boost those ratings up a bit. But the thing is, like, at the end of the day, it's just a huge quality signal. Like, I remember going through New Mexico on a road trip to the NAC show, and I was trying to find some interesting stores, and I'm going down Google Maps, researching for gas stations to see what pops up, and I see one that's got like more than 7,000 ratings, and I'm like, okay, something's going on here. Well, it was Russell's Travel Center. That's how I found a classic car museum in a truck stop. I would have never found that otherwise.
Right. And then I think human nature too is, we have this negative bias. So very few people are motivated, even if they had a great experience, to go in and say, this was a great experience. Take the time to do it. Right. So what I've found in working with some of the folks on Yelp, for instance, the only people who really get on Yelp are the people who are really ticked off.
Yeah.
And so there's a negative bias on that to even begin with. And so trying to get people to put those, post those positive reviews, I think is a very active thing. It's something that cashiers should be doing. You should be printing it at the bottom of your receipt, hey, have a good experience, post it on Google, and get your customers, especially your biggest cheerleaders, to take the time to understand, you know what, these people probably get a ton of negatives, and maybe my good experience is really what I want to post out there. Take the time to do the good experience review. I really try to do that. I have to tell you my personal story. When we had Snowmageddon down here in Austin this year, my propane guy had me totally messed up on degree days. He was showing 30% propane. The day that Snowmageddon hit, I had 5% propane. I called, placed an order. 2 weeks later, I still had not gotten my propane. I had not had any heat. I went up on Facebook and posted a nastygram on their posting. I had a delivery within 24 hours.
Yeah.
And they got back to me individually, and I was like, okay, that's the power. Because what I did, I couldn't get through to any of their phone lines. Everybody was out of propane. They literally moved a truck from Waco, Texas, down to to Georgetown to make sure I got filled up, and my neighbor.
I mean, one thing I would definitely advise people on is if anyone is telling you to just leave a generic copy and paste response that says we're going to let the local management team know, fire that person, please, because they're not giving you good advice. Like, no one believes that when that is posted that is a genuine response. It's like my wife and I went in this casual dining chain because we had been in there for years and figured, this is right after we got vaccinated, and we hadn't been to a lot of restaurants, and we're like, oh, let's just go out and check it out. Their burgers are pretty good. And it looked exactly like it did when we went there maybe 15 years ago, except with all the wear and tear accumulated, since then. It just looked terrible. But I was like, all right, well, I'll ignore that red flag. Let's just eat here. It was quite honestly the worst service I've ever had. It was, I think, the second restaurant in my life I've ever just walked out of. It was that bad. And I've waited tables. I've got a high tolerance on these things. This was that bad. And, I comment on this, and you know what they did? They copy and pasted that we'll let the local management team know. And I'm thinking maybe the local management team is the problem here. Like,
right.
Come on, guys. Like, I'm trying to let you know about this. And honestly, I'll never go back. That kind of stuff just really turns you off from a company. It's like, if you're going to do that, just don't say anything. But I think to put genuine replies to people, listen to what they have to say, and really look at these things as an indicator of how people perceive your customer experience, there's so much value there. There's some retailers out there that have great scores on Google Maps. There's some retailers that are sitting around a portfolio of about 2 stars. That's a sign that there's a problem.
Right.
That's really useful information.
It's the other thing that's interesting. We've been talking about Texas Born and my kids working for them, and my one daughter has turned into their single-handed recruiting operation because they pay a pretty high bounty to bring people in. So she's got 2 of her best friends working with her. And while they're waiting for the store in Georgetown to open, she went down to work at one of the other stores, and they said, no, you're not working today. They took the 3 teenagers, incoming seniors, they took them to 4 restaurants of their choice and said, you guys go in and eat, and then I want you to come out. And they did an experience ranking. What was good, what was not. And then they sat them in the office and they said, I want you to look at our social media and tell us what we're doing wrong. And so here's where you've got, and I know that Texas Born has got marketing people that they've hired on to manage this thing. But they actually took the time to get their 17-year-olds that they just hired onto a new store, and they said, what's wrong with us? And they're looking at their TikTok. They're looking at all of the channels that they use, and they came back with some really cool insights about it. And to your earlier point, you're too serious.
Mm-hmm.
You're selling me stuff. You've got an experience here that you should be selling, and that would make it more viral for us as teenagers. To go in there and try the breakfast taco and say these are the best things I've ever had. That type of thing. So, that's one of those resources. Everybody's got teenagers working for them right now. Maybe you pay them a couple hours to go on your social media and say, okay, what sucks about us? How can I get more relevant to your cohort? Instead of trying to sell to Gray Taylor, who's, I'm not your typical cohort. So a lot of creativity around that.
Well, and that's a really good point, though, because I mean, all right, I'm 35 years old. I grew up on the internet. I ran tons of websites in high school. Like, I try to think I'm pretty digitally savvy. I got to tell you, TikTok makes me feel old. I look at it and it just, I don't get it. It looks dumb. I very much can't stand it, but a lot of people like it, and that's cool. The thing is, like, you would not want to come to me for TikTok advice, but you probably
Right.
should talk to your 17-year-old store associate who's on it all the time and ask them for advice on it. In fact, there's some examples of retailers who've done this well and made it work. Come and Go's a good example with their TikTok account, but also the Beer Sultan at Fave Trip did pretty much the same thing. Just, I think it was a store associate who wanted to take it up and run it, and they've got like 50,000 followers last time I looked. I mean, those are good numbers for a company of that size. Like, and their content's hilarious. So
yeah.
But that's the thing.
And that's really what it is. You've got to entertain. Nobody wants a hard sell anymore. Customers are very skeptical of that. It's all about, and Come and Go does a good job of this on all their channels. They make it fun. They make fun of themselves. They make fun of their competition. You kind of enjoy reading their tweets because they're not going to try and hard sell you a new Reese's peanut butter cup.
Yeah.
It's just come to my location. We figure you'll buy something when you show up.
Nobody gets on Twitter because they want a deal on a fountain drink. Like, no one cares about that content on there. There's a retailer on Twitter that's got 400,000 followers and is lucky to get more than 5 likes. Won't name who they are, but it's because all of their content is about, hey, we've got a deal on strawberries today. We've got a deal on 24 packs of Coca-Cola. Folks, no one cares. Literally, nobody cares. No one gets on Twitter because they want that information. They want to be entertained or, get something, see something that just makes them laugh, or at least if it's coming from a brand.
Yep, absolutely.
There's so much more that can be done. And there's, the thing is, there's great accounts to see, what they've done and what works for them. I think both Quick Trips do a great job. I think Come and Go has done a good job. Sheets has done a really good job. I think they were really like at the top of their game about 2 years ago. I don't know who was working for them at the time, but man, that person was incredible. I mean, they were on there, sending care packages to streamers and gamers, sending them Sheets mouse pads, which I still really want one of those badly. Those were cool. They were playing, they were streaming on Twitch with their fans. Like, that's cool. Like, no one does stuff like that. And that really stands out.
Yep, and the platforms change every 5 to 10 years. I mean, I'm still waiting for MySpace to come back. But so it's TikTok this time around. In 5 years, it'll be some new platform that the next cohort coming into work for you is going to have. And so it's just keeping in touch and valuing the cultural inputs that can come from those folks. Don't look at them as just hourly employees. Look at them as resources on, hey, I want, you're a mobile 17-year-old. You buy fuel, you live on fast food. How do I get you to come in? And, what are the ways that I reach you? So I was very impressed with that. And yeah, I mentioned, my daughter had actually worked at Pizza Hut where they didn't ask them anything. And she came back from that experience, text support, and she's like, man, again, they also care about what our opinions are. And they're asking us, these deep questions, and it's a cheap resource. It's a great thing.
I mean, but that's why brands like Texas Born are going to do well, though. And to your point, I mean, it's a differentiated brand. I love the new branding, the new store designs, but their food's incredible, and the fact that they're going to listen to, everybody like that, like that's just going to make them better. And that's stuff their competitors probably aren't doing.
And just a side note on the store in Georgetown, which is really going to be their biggest one, and that's where my kids are going to be working. Mm-hmm. Texas Born has trained them 2-3 months ago and was actually transporting them down to other stores to get them trained. And that store has been delayed in opening for something that nobody ever counted on in COVID, which is these spot supply disruptions. You can't get structural steel. You couldn't get lumber 2 months ago. And then every time they hire electricians to come in and finish off the electrical, Tesla comes in and offers them twice the money to go work on the new gigafactory down next to the airport. So it's just all these shortages coming into play now are actually delaying a lot of openings and making them a lot more expensive. So it's an interesting thing that we've been kind of seeing. I want to talk a little bit about EVs as well. One of the things I read recently is that 50% of Californians who have bought an EV, when they go to repurchase a vehicle, they're moving back to ICE. Mm-hmm. And the main reason cited was lack of charging stations. And this is California, right? So mm-hmm. California, if anybody is being proactive on getting that out there. You see this as really just being a super headwind here, that we're just in this, we're in this fluffy era where this is going to solve all of our problems, and everybody's going to be buying EVs. And I just read this morning in the Wall Street Journal, as a matter of fact, that the target right now is by 2030, 50% of the vehicles being purchased are EVs. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of skepticism on it. I think it's well, especially when I see politicians setting deadlines, I'm a little skeptical of politicians to consider second and third order effects of things or think through anything clearly. So I guess there's that. But honestly, here's what bothers me about EVs is that this category, any growth in that I see is leading to fragmentation in the fuel customer base. That is something where any growth in it is going to effectively have that problem. Whatever the demand for public charging is going to be, I see absolutely no reason to believe it's going to be the same as the demand for fuel pumps at convenience stores. You're going to have other businesses that are siphoning away some of that demand. You're going to have people like grocery stores, big box stores. Like I mentioned, you could even have a barbershop put a charger out if they want. I mean, why couldn't they? I've been to stores with barbershops where they have some incredible dwell time. Then you're going to have some percentage of people charging at home, some percentage of people charging at work. The moat that's around the convenience store business through fuel won't exist with that. So there may be some examples of retailers where charging is a perfectly great amenity for them in the scenario that their stores exist. But the idea that every convenience store is going to somehow just replace chargers or pumps with chargers and then they're going to make that transition, it's a very different business and it just doesn't work the same. So that's what worries me. And at the end of the day, it's for the traditional gas station and convenience store, that fuel pump is the primary driver of traffic. The entire conversation in past years has been, how do you convert those people inside the store? Well, if you have some fragmentation in that customer base, there's just simply going to be less of them to convert into the store. And I think your smokes and Coke stores are going to have to really think hard about, how do we convince a person to come here? Because on the other end of the spectrum, you're going to have growth in on-demand delivery for impulse and convenience too. I mean, what's happening with GoPuff, what's happening with, the aggregators getting into it, like what DoorDash is doing with DashMart.
Right.
It's really easy to sit at home and just get whatever you need brought to you in a really quick and convenient manner for an affordable price now. That's an issue. At least I think that's an issue. So that's what worries me about it.
Yeah, and it's an interesting premise, because GoPuff, it's the $2 billion market cap convenience store chain that doesn't have one storefront. Yeah. There's a lot of money going into betting that dark stores are going to fly, that home delivery is going to fly. And it's a little bit frustrating, because I haven't seen a lot of the incumbents out there moving to take that out. If you're sitting in let's say Austin, and you've got 20 stores in the Austin market, what's keeping you from doing a GoPuff delivery system and competing with it head on, and doing a dark store type of thing? It brings me to the whole question of innovation, because I think the landscape that we've painted is that I don't think the future is going to be sufficient for a small operator to copy what they read in a magazine about what a big chain has done. Mm-hmm. I think, and you're the connoisseur of this, the quirky entrepreneurial, the mule kick. I think what it is, we're entering a new stage of entrepreneurism, which is, how do you be unique? How do you take yourself away from, the crowds, so that people don't look at you as just another convenience store?
It's kind of funny when you say that. I found this old book kind of on the history of the gas station industry that's written by, I think it was a professor at the University of Iowa in the 90s, and found a old copy on Amazon, was reading through it. And it's interesting when they were talking about how the standardization of the experience and the big brand identity and all of that was building customer trust and making it hard for smaller companies to compete against them in the early days. And I'm like, wow, that is the polar opposite of today.
Right,
I don't think people want the big sterile brand. I think they want the quirky, unique brand that is theirs and uniquely theirs. They want to, share with excitement, oh my God, you won't believe this place I went, or they want to go in there and, feel like they're really just getting something different for their money. It's not exciting to go into a company with thousands of stores where, it's just, you feel a sterile experience or something like that. I think some big operators do a good job, like QT in particular. I know their experience is the same everywhere, but it's the same good experience everywhere.
Right.
I feel like they've been able to pull that off incredibly well. But at the same time, for the small operators, if you're in a market with all these big brands, like you still can stand out. You can make something that they're not doing. You can do something totally unique. It's like there's a bar and restaurant by me on one of our bicycle trails that tucked a Korean barbecue truck into their kitchen that is also doing tacos. So now you've got this weird mix of tacos and Korean barbecue, and they've started blending the two, and you're getting like lobster tacos and fish tacos with these different Korean sauces on them. And it's like, okay, this is cool. I'm going to be coming back here quite a bit at this point. Convenience stores, it's no different. I mean, honestly, the stores that get me more excited than anything are all single store places like High Country Market and Gastropub, El Carajo in Miami, Wildfire Brick Oven Pizza in Mashpee, Massachusetts. I mean, the gal imported a brick oven from Italy and is cooking some of the best pizza I've ever had in my life, and it's in a Shell station in Cape Cod. Right. There's so many examples of this working, and like any independent operator can do something totally off the beaten path and unique like that. I mean, there's no reason an independent operator can't stick a sign by the street that says voted county's best restrooms 3 years running. No one's going to press them on that. If anything, it's going to start a debate about, well, who voted on that? Where's that coming from? It's going to get people talking. It could just be, I don't know, we polled everyone internally and we were voted best restroom. But but if they put some money into it and make those restrooms nicer than what anyone's got in their home, now you're really going to get a conversation going. People are going to be like, hey, have you seen that at that store? I don't know. I could be off the beaten path here, but I just think like there's so many opportunities to just do something totally unique and just blow people away in a way that big chains are never going to do. Yeah,
it's be bold. I mean, don't be timid, right? Don't copy. And a lot of it is low tech. It's okay. Focus on your food prep. Can you expose your food preparation and make a kitchen theater? Can you come up with lobster tacos, which are counterintuitive to a convenience store chain or a convenience store operation? Like High Country, you and I've been there and actually sampled wine from a $300 bottle of wine. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Nobody expected that. And so, how do you just get bold about it? And it's low tech. You don't have to go follow the big guys into this, I've got a mobile app, I've got, this sort of thing. It's just, the people who are coming in and seeing me, I want to surprise them. I want to come up with something that they say, that's not a convenience store. That's where I go and get lunch twice a week.
Honestly, the expectations for this channel from the general consumer are so incredibly low. If you go way above and beyond and delight them, it's going to be incredible marketing. I mean, the marketing potential of that is just outrageous. People are going to talk about it. They're going to share it with their friends. But you take restaurants. If I get another gentrified Edison Bulb restaurant with hipsters serving craft cocktails, those things are a dime a dozen right now. Like I'm going to go there and I'm going to forget about it the next day. Convenience stores, if you dropped that experience into a convenience store, they'd be talking about it. You'd get something like Farmer's Grandson in Eagan, Minnesota, where they have a speakeasy bar called Volstead House, and you get exactly that thing. Hipsters and like denim aprons serving up incredible craft cocktails, and the food's to die for. Like, all right, now that's a destination. Now that stands out. Like I said,
and
people just have low expectations.
And the quirkiness is it's strapped to a gas station. I mean, that was Rudy's premise, right? Rudy's was, hey, we're a barbecue. I don't think they care if they ever sell a gallon of gas.
Well, they got
Texas is worse
about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody have any questions in the audience? I'd like to field those. Frank and I can talk for hours. So if there's anybody who's got any questions, raise your hand. We'll put you on speaker, or you can type them into the chat.
Yeah, there were a couple good ones coming in on the chat.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I said there were a couple good ones coming in on the chat. I'm just looking at those right now. Well, here's one I'll start off with. I was interested to hear Frank mention a store he loves because they have new products. How can our industry improve speed to market on new items? I'll tell you one I love because of new products. 36 Lynn in Minneapolis. That store, I feel like every time I go there, they've got different products inside. And I love that. I'll shout this as loud as I can. Stocking a store with only the products from the major CPG companies will not make you a destination. I can get Diet Coke anywhere. I love Diet
Right.
Coke. Don't get me wrong. Like I drink a lot of it, but I can get that literally at the hardware store down the street. That's not a
Right.
differentiator, and it's not going to convince me to come to your store. If anything, I'd probably think it might be more expensive at a convenience store. But I love going to 36 Lynn because every single time I've been there, there is something new and different. And I honestly generally buy most of them just to try them out. I found some high end spices last time I was there, which was kind of odd, but they're in my kitchen and I use them. I think I got like an Al Pastor spice blend or something. I don't know. It's incredible. They always have new coffees, new cookies, new chocolates, new something. And
It's a
that's a
treasure
small
hunt. I
element.
mean, when you go in there, your expectations. I am going to see something new, and it's kind of a treasure hunt. And you've
Yeah.
got respect for Lonnie's curation of what that treasure hunt is.
It's so good, and that's the thing. It's kind of like that Trader Joe's experience. You know how you go there and they always have something different.
Right.
You go in there one day, maybe they have shishito peppers, maybe they don't. Maybe they've got like a truffle butter, maybe they don't. There's always something different, and it just makes it turns what should be a rote experience into something that's a little more enjoyable. It gives you a reason to
Right.
go there more than anything.
Yep. And to be fair, so the QT that we mentioned, QT, their brand is about reliability.
Hmm.
I can go to any QT and it's very reliable, high quality, services. I don't expect QT to delight me with a treasure hunt.
No,
At
I
all.
don't either.
That's not my expectation. But if I go to a small local guy here, yeah, if he can tie me in on that, I can go in and see new stuff. I can't
Um,
see the question. So if you're seeing them, Frank, go ahead and just tee them up.
Yeah, there's another one here. It says there's a new Wendy's near my house, and the inside seating is tiny. The entire lot is geared toward drive-throughs. Are drive-throughs a headwind for C stores? I remember doing this. I've written this article for Nax a few years ago, and I spoke with the folks over at King Casey about drive-throughs. They do like Starbucks, McDonald's, and that's actually one of the most interesting conversations I think I've ever had. And I remember what they were telling me is they're like, here's the thing. They're like, we talk with QSRs, and we have heard many of them say if convenience stores figure this out, that's going to be a massive competitive threat to our business model. And
Yep.
I agree. I think the drive-through is something that absolutely needs to be figured out, especially if you're in the food service game. Don't get me wrong, it might be quicker in some cases to get out of your car, go get it, tap and go and leave. But there's a lot of people that just won't want to get out of a car, period. So, and there's something psychological about just routing off the road and going through a drive-through. It's a different form of convenience, even if it takes longer. I think it absolutely needs to be a thing. I think a lot of operators struggle with it though, because it's a tactic that has like 5 decades of thought leadership and experience and innovation behind it. It's not as simple as cutting the hole in the wall and you got to drive through. You got to figure out what services are you going to duplicate near the drive-through window. Are you going to sell all the products or just some of them? If someone's got to run across the store and grab something, what's that going to do to your queue time? How are you going to signal and communicate at different stages? There's so much more to it, but I think if retailers figure this out, it's just going to make this channel even stronger. I think it absolutely needs to be figured out.
It's interesting stat. Leroy over at Nax does a lot of consumer surveys and CTP,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things that surfaced in the last year was that when customers are interviewed, about a third of our customers filling up at gas are on their way over to get food at a QSR.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And they may never go into the store, and even they may even think that all you are is a roller dog merchant, right? That you don't have this wonderful thing in the back. And so there's a big opportunity for us to start educating these customers who are on the way. It's billions of dollars of sales.
I remember doing a survey at one point, and I was trying to get impressions of people's opinions of convenience store breakfast. And I remember seeing someone had typed in a comment that said, no, I go to places that serve real food, or I go to a real restaurant. And I kind of laughed. I'm like, all right, I mean, I live by Casey's. I mean, they have real food, but it's this idea, there's something about a drive-through being attached to a place that says this place sells food, that makes it look like a restaurant. And for unfortunately, there's still a stigma attached to the fuel canopy for a lot of people. So having a drive-through there may help in a lot of ways beyond just, making it easier to sell food. It may actually help bring people in that might otherwise not go there, especially in the morning commutes.
Interesting way to do curbside delivery, right? Which nobody took up during COVID. I have yet to hear one retailer say curbside was successful.
I live by someone doing curbside, not Casey's. Casey's is a good one for curbside because they do a lot of made to order pizzas, of course, but I live by another retailer doing curbside. I I asked their cashiers if anyone's using it. Not a single one has said yes. Or sorry, they did once. They said there's an old guy that was using it, and because he was afraid of coming to the store due to COVID, and that was it. So
Right.
build out this huge thing to serve one customer. But no, I don't think curbside is a huge thing for the convenience store industry unless you're doing customizable made to order food, or you're driving there to pick something up to take home like a Casey's pizza. That's a great use case. But other than that, I think it's a hard sell. Like I said, I'm not going to curbside a Bang energy drink. I don't even know which one I want until I get in the store. I'll just go in and see if they have cotton candy or lemon drop or sour head or whatever, and then make a decision.
Well, heck, you don't even know which flavors they have.
Yeah, that's a thing. It's always different. I might even go in and decide I want a Red Bull today. Who knows? But another question came through and said centralization seems to be the enemy of a good consumer experience. Other than pushing social media responsibility down to stores, what other decentralization might be possible? Could 5G play a role in context for communication? I think you're right that centralization does seem to be an enemy of a good customer experience. So I usually use a phrase scale as the enemy of quality, which seems to be the case. I don't know if there's an easy answer there, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think one thing I really struggle with that I will point out is when some of the larger retailers script all of their employee interactions. I think that is an outdated technique that needs to go away like yesterday.
Yeah.
It ends up with this weird song and dance where I'm standing there and I know that they're giving me a script and they're looking at me knowing that I know that they're doing a script, and it's just weird interaction that neither person really enjoys. And it'd be better off never doing that again, to be quite honest. And often this takes place around the context of loyalty programs. Folks, if I like your loyalty program, I'll use it of my own volition. Stop asking me if I have it. I hate that. I hate that so much. And it's not just anecdotally. I've heard that complaint from many, many, many people. I know why it happens, but it really, this gets into another topic. I really think checkout free retail is going to be a good thing for a lot of retailers, because the moment you can untether employees from registers and stop having them do the job of a robot, now you can actually have them do more valuable tasks, not just from cleaning the store and cleaning the forecourt and stocking it like you see in Amazon Go, but enabling genuine human interaction. Allowing them to talk with people, say hello. When someone's stuck behind a register and they're reading a script, like, you can't do good customer service like that. And I think that's a big problem for a lot of larger chains. It's just a scripted interaction with everyone. I mean, at that point, like, I don't know. It's kind of a rant. I could go on about this for a long time, but I hate it. I think everyone hates that.
We were talking about self-checkout and robotics one time with Joe Sheets, and he made a statement that I thought was really interesting. He said, if I could automate everything that could be automated in my store, I would still have the same employees. Their job would just change. Go out and talk to the customer. Because
and that's essentially what Amazon does.
They look at a unautomated process as taking their employees away from customer interaction. And some employees don't want to have an interaction, which is why we're seeing the explosion in self-checkout. Mm-hmm. I think that's just going to be a huge trend. And it's really what it is just serving a sub-segment of your customer base, which is, you don't want to stand in line to buy that 6-pack of beer or whatever. You just want to be in and out and get out of here. So we're going to service you over there to do that. So it's really going to be, we have to be more things to more people. And some people, frictionless is never talking to a person. And some people, frictionless is having a great conversation with a person, because
I mean, that's absolutely spot on. And one thing I'll add to this is, I think, there's this sort of narrative I've seen popping up lately, coming from a lot of folks at tech companies that have experience in the restaurant industry, suggesting that convenience stores need to be more like the QSRs. I think that's wrong. I don't think they need to be more like the QSRs. I think the QSRs have, for years, delivered one of the absolute worst customer experiences imaginable. They just don't prioritize it. They aren't seen as good places to work. They're just little boxes of automation that deliver Jetson food to you out of a hole in the wall on the side of the store. And that's great.
It's reliably bad.
It's like reliably bad or mediocre. But sometimes, at least you know what you're getting, so you're willing to make that concession. or you just want trashy food. Don't get me wrong, I love trashy food. But the thing is, I think the convenience store has so much more potential and needs to be its own food service category. Fast casual restaurants, convenience stores, quick service restaurants, it needs to be its own category. And customer service is a huge part of that. You don't get customer service at a QSR. You can get it from a convenience store. But here's the thing, when everyone's tethered to a register, that's really hard to do. I remember talking to an Amazon Go employee in Chicago. She used to work at a Walgreens and said, basically, she was there with one other person. She wanted to talk to the regulars in the morning that walked in and got their stuff, but she had to keep the line moving, so she couldn't talk to them. And then when people came in and wanted products that were still in boxes and weren't on the shelves yet, her district manager had told her just to say that they don't have it. It was a very inefficient way to run a store. And so being at Amazon Go, I talked to her for like 10 minutes, and not once did she look antsy like she needs to get back to work, because that was her job, was to talk to people. And I don't know, that left a big impression on me, but I could see Sheetz employees walking around in t-shirts, hey, Dave, how's it going? Good to see you.
Just fast to everybody but you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, I'll probably never get one of
those.
Hey,
we're over time, and that's never a surprise with us. Hey, I want to thank Frank Beard for being here and sharing his insights. I know we go all over the map, but so does Frank in real time. So whenever I can get some of his insights, it's something that's really, really valuable. Frank, thanks for joining us, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation where we can talk about a whole new set of realities that we've discovered and stumbled over.
Yeah. Hey, this was a pleasure as always. Thanks for inviting me on.